What's up guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to loop through an object in JavaScript. So we have got a pretty basic object here that I've created. It has got some properties like name, username, email, a phone number and a website. So we as JS devs, be it a front-end dev or a back-end one, we come across the situation a lot of times in our day-to-day jobs, or if you're learning as a student, where we have to loop through an object. So we've got pretty much multiple ways to do that. So in this video I'm gonna look at the most commonly used ways to loop through an object. So the first way that I can think of here is a loop, which is called as a for in loop. So let's see how for in loop helps us in iterating this object here. Okay, so let's write down the loop. It's for let key in object. The object that I'm taking in here is the object that I want to loop through, and let's, for demonstration purposes, let's log out the key and see what do we get in the console. Okay, as expected, we got all the keys from this object, which is the ID, name, username, email, the phone number and the website. So our task here is to loop through all the key value pairs inside the object and print them out to the console. So let's say, let me make a template literal here, and let's print out the key inside here. Let's give a colon here, and let's say object of key. So with this, if I'm going to print it out, it's going to print out the ID, the name, the username with all the values the keys have. So what's object of key here? It's pretty much this obj. Obj is the object, and the key here will be, let's say, ID. In the first iteration it's going to be ID, which is going to be equal to the value of the ID inside the object, which is 1, and so on. Like it iterates through all the keys inside the object and prints it out for us. This is the first way I can think of. And the second way is object dot keys. It's a method. Let's see how this method helps us in printing out the key value pairs of the object. Let's extract the keys out of the object. Let's name it keys, and let's do object dot keys and pass in the object that we want to iterate through, which in our case is the obj declared up here. And let's log out the keys first, and let's see what we get into the console. Let's comment this out, run. So it's going to give us an array of all the keys that we have inside this object. Now, how can we use this array to print out all of the key value pairs inside the object? We can use a traditional for loop, or we can use a for each loop. In this case, let's use a for each loop. Let's say keys dot for each, which means loop through all the keys in this array. And in for each, if I'm going to say, let's name every key as EL, and let's print it out. Let's say console.log EL, and let's say what we get here. Let's take it out. Let's run it. Okay, so it's not giving me an array this time. It's going to loop through that array and then give me all the keys or all the elements inside that array. And now we know that these elements are the key names within this object, and we also know that these key names can be used to extract the values out of the object. Let me show you an example here. Let's say, let me comment this out, I'll reuse it later. Let me say console.log obj, which is our object, and let me say keys. What's keys? Keys is the array of all the keys that we have inside the object, and let's say keys of 0, and keys of 0 is technically going to have the first key, right? If I'm going to run this, what is it going to print out? 1, right? If I'm going to say keys of 1, it's going to print the name, right? So technically all the keys are present inside the object, and we can use those keys to extract the values of the key value pairs. So let's take it out, let's uncomment this, and let's see doing this console.log. Let's bring in the same console log here, copy this, paste it here. Okay, it's gonna give me a syntax error. Let me see what it is. I'm missing a bracket, I think. Yep. Okay, so here I'm looping through all the keys, and then I'm looping again through all the keys here and printing out the key and the value. So let's run it. Key is not defined. All right, it's not going to be the key, it's going to be EL. It's going to be EL because I've named the key as EL here, and here I had named it as key, so that's why. Okay, so this is the second way which we can use to, it's pretty much done in 2 lines. We could also do it in just a single line. We can just copy the object.keys line here, and we can simply paste it here, because this thing is going to return us an array, right? And then that returned array will be looped here, and we can simply delete this line. We don't need it. And if I'm going to run it, it's still going to work. See, right? So this is the other way that we can use to loop through an object. And what's the third one? Yeah, the third one is object.entries method. Let's say object.entries. Let me show you guys what object.entries method does. Let's name it entries, and let's say object.entries, and let's pass in the object that we want to loop through. Let's console it out, entries. Okay, it's giving me an array which has some nested arrays inside of it, but as you can see, each element inside an array is an array which contains key and the value. Key, value, key, value. Now the question here is, how can we loop through this array here? What we can do here is, let's say if I'm going to say entries dot for each, and let's say EL, and log it out, what am I going to get here? Okay, so this time it's not a nested array, but this is printing the key value pair inside an array, which at the 0th position we have the key, and at the first index we have the value of that key. Okay, now if we want to loop through this array, what we can do here is we can destructure the array elements into their variables. What we can do here is, let me show you this. We're going to make a simple and minor change here. We're going to keep it inside an array, and let's see what this turns out. Okay, so it's giving us the all the keys of an object. And now, as you guys already have thought about it, we're gonna add the value here, and it's gonna destructure the value out of the array. Let's copy the same console log and paste it here. This time it's EL, and this is value, and let's delete this. Let's include it back in EL. This is going to be the value. Alright, let's print it out. Yeah, so it's going to give us the key value pairs, which is in a looped form. Alright, so and this might confuse you guys, but this is really simple. Let me give you an example and make it a little clear for you guys. This is array destructuring. What we can do is we can comment this out here, and I'll show you guys how array destructuring works. So let's say I've got an array which has two elements. The first one is my first name. The second element inside the array is my middle name, which is Bassett. And if I'm going to print out the array, what are we going to get on the console? We're going to get the array which we just wrote right? So if I want to extract out the first element here and the second element here, we have got multiple ways to do that. The first way is I can simply say array of 0, which is the 0th index, which is Muhammad, and the second is array of 1, which is the second element inside the array, which is Bassett. If I'm going to print it, I'm going to get Muhammad Bassett. Alright, but there's one more way by which we can destructure the elements of an array, which is having an array on the left hand side and naming the variables which I'm going to destructure here. So this is my first name. I'll say first name. This will automatically be equal to the Muhammad on the right side of the array. And the second thing that I'm going to pass on here is the last name, which is going to be middle name. Doesn't really matter what the name is. You can name it X, and you can name it Y, you can name it 1, you can name it 2, you can name it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And I can just simply print out first name, middle name, and I'm gonna get the same behavior out of it. So that's how array destructuring works. In this case here, I had the same case, right? If I'm gonna comment everything out here, and I'm gonna print console.log entries, and run it. Okay, sorry, and run it. It's gonna give me the nested arrays, right? So this is an array, and we are destructuring every array value here. EL is EL, and value is the value. So EL is the key and value is the value. So this thing is equal to this thing, which is equal to the array destructuring I showed you here earlier. So guys, I think these are the most commonly used array destructuring, the object iterating methods that we can do. The first one is using the for in loop. The second one is using the object.keys. It's literally in a single line. And we can also do something like this here. Instead of having an extra variable, we can just cut it out and do this. No need to have an extra pair of braces here. Just bring it into the same line. Just bring this into the same line. Just give me a minute. Let me indent it properly. Yep, everything is gonna work. Let me comment everything out and run it again for you guys. Let's see. So we're gonna get the same result for all of them. right? So this is the result from the foreign loop. This is the result from the object.keys method, and this is the result from the object.entries. I hope you guys like the video, and it's going to be beneficial for the new learners or the people who are already working in their respective fields. Back-end guys, front-end guys, everybody can use it. So yeah, have a good day.